The small family restaurant was full that evening with warm lights hanging from the ceiling and soft music floating through the air. People were laughing and talking while servers moved between tables with careful steps. Near the front window sat Ben and Mia at a small table with a white cake placed between them. The cake had pink flowers and a simple message written across the top. It was supposed to be a happy night for both of them, a night to celebrate something small but meaningful, but the feeling at the table was heavy and tense. Mia sat quietly on her chair with her hands resting in her lap. Her blue dress was neat and simple, and her hair was tied back in a low style. Her face looked calm from the outside, but inside her heart felt tired. She had worked long hours all week cleaning homes from morning till evening, saving every extra coin she could. She had planned this small celebration herself, and even paid for the cake earlier in the day because she wanted the moment to be peaceful. She wanted one night where there would be no stress and no fear. Ben sat across from her scrolling on his phone. His fingers moved fast on the screen, and his eyes never stayed in one place for long. His expression showed no joy, no smile, not even curiosity about the cake placed right in front of him. He leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms with a deep breath of impatience. He had not said a kind word since they arrived. Mia looked at him softly and asked if he liked the cake. Her voice was gentle and careful, the way she always spoke to avoid trouble. Ben did not answer right away. He kept looking at his phone as if he did not even hear her. After a moment he placed the phone face down on the table and looked at the cake with a slow, cold glance. The server walked over with a polite smile and placed the bill on the table. She thanked them and said she would be nearby if they needed anything. Then she walked away. Mia glanced at the paper for a brief second, then calmly pushed it toward Ben. She said in a soft voice that the cake was already paid for earlier and that only the meal needed to be covered. Ben looked at the bill and then looked at Mia. His face changed in a sharp way. His eyes narrowed and his jaw tightened. He picked up the paper and shook it lightly as if it angered him. The air around the table became heavy and uncomfortable. People at nearby tables continued talking and laughing, not knowing what was happening just a few steps away. Ben leaned forward and spoke in a low, harsh voice, asking why she did not pay for the whole thing. Mia answered in the same calm tone that she had used her savings for the cake, and that she did not have enough left for the full meal. She reminded him that they agreed earlier that he would cover dinner, and she would handle the cake. His face twisted with anger in a way that shocked her. His chair scraped slightly against the floor as he pushed closer to the table. He said she always had excuses, and that she embarrassed him in front of everyone around them. Mia felt her hands shake slightly, but she kept them folded on her lap. She did not raise her voice. She only repeated quietly that she had paid what she promised to pay. For a moment Ben stayed silent, then his hand moved suddenly and grabbed the cake. The soft icing bent under his fingers. Before Mia could react, he lifted the cake off the table, and in one fast motion he threw it toward her. The white icing spread across her face and dress. The pink flowers fell onto her lap, and the plate hit the floor with a loud crash that stopped the entire room. Gasps filled the restaurant. Some chairs moved back quickly, and every eye turned toward them. The music kept playing softly, but it felt distant now. Mia sat frozen for a moment with icing on her face and dress, her hands still resting in her lap, as if her body could not move. Yet her heart started to pound loudly inside her chest. Ben stood up, breathing fast, his chest rising and falling. People stared at him in shock, some with anger, some with confusion. He shouted that she should learn her place and that he was tired of being embarrassed. His voice echoed through the small room, making the silence even heavier. The server rushed over with wide eyes. Another worker followed behind her. The manager came from behind the counter. All of them looked at Mia in disbelief and concern, while others looked at Ben with clear disapproval. Someone at a nearby table whispered something under their breath. Another person shook their head in anger. Mia slowly raised her hands and wiped a bit of icing from her eyes. She could finally see clearly again. Her heart still raced, but her face did not show fear anymore. Something had changed inside her in that moment, something deep and quiet that had been sleeping for a long time. She carefully stood up from her chair, the icing on her dress slowly sliding down the fabric. People expected her to cry or run or shout, but she did none of that. Instead, she lifted her head and looked straight at Ben. Her eyes were steady and clear. For the first time in many years, he saw something in her face that made him step back slightly. The manager asked if everyone was okay. His voice was calm but serious. Mia nodded once and said she was fine. Her voice was still calm but stronger now, stronger than it had ever been before. She turned toward the server and quietly asked for a towel. The server quickly handed her one with shaking hands. While cleaning her face, Mia spoke in a steady voice that carried across the room. She said she had kept silent for a long time and had allowed many wrong things to happen, but that tonight showed her something clear. She said that she was done being treated as nothing. Her words were simple, but they landed heavy in the quiet room. Ben tried to speak, trying to say something in defense, but his words came out messy and weak. People were already shaking their heads. Someone called out that his behavior was shameful. Another person asked the manager to call security. Mia placed the towel on the table, folded neatly. Even though her hands still trembled slightly, she looked at Ben one last time and told him that she would not go home with him that night. Her voice did not shake at all when she said it. For the first time in her life, she felt no fear in speaking those words. She turned toward the manager and apologized for the trouble, even though none of it was her fault. The manager shook his head and told her there was nothing she needed to apologize for. Other guests nodded in agreement. As Mia took a step away from the table, she felt the weight of many eyes on her back. Some were filled with sympathy, others with respect. She walked slowly toward the exit, her step steady and quiet, her heart still beating fast but her mind clear. Behind her, Ben stood alone by the broken cake, and the scattered plate. Security was already on the way, and the room buzzed with whispers and low voices. His anger had turned into panic as he realized that everyone had seen what he truly was. Outside the restaurant, the night air was cool and fresh. It touched Mia's face and helped calm her breathing. She looked up at the dark sky and felt something new rise inside her. Not fear, not sadness, but strength, a quiet, powerful strength she had never allowed herself to feel before. She pulled her phone from her bag and for a few seconds stared at the screen. Her fingers hovered over the contacts list. She knew exactly who she needed to call, someone she had avoided for many years. Out of pride and pain, she finally pressed the name and waited as the phone rang. Far away, a voice answered, soft and surprised, and in that moment Mia realized that this night was not the end of her story. It was only the beginning of something no one inside that restaurant could yet imagine. The cool night air wrapped around Mia as she stood outside the restaurant, holding her phone close to her ear. Her hands were still shaking, but her voice stayed steady as she spoke to the person on the other side of the call. The voice that answered was her older sister Lena, who lived across town and had not heard from Mia in a long time. Lena was silent for a moment after hearing Mia speak, then her voice softened and told Mia to come to her home right away. Mia did not look back at the restaurant. She turned and began walking down the street. Her dress was still marked with the white icing, but she no longer cared about how she looked to strangers. Her heart felt heavy, but also free. Cars passed by and streetlights glowed above her with a quiet, steady light. Each step she took felt like a step forward into a new life. As she walked, she remembered the early days of her marriage, how Ben had once been kind and gentle, how he had promised her a safe and loving life. Those memories now felt far away, like old pictures that no longer held meaning. What stayed strong in her mind instead were the moments she had stayed quiet, the time she had accepted harsh words and cold days, thinking that patience would fix everything. When Mia reached the bus stop, she sat down slowly and waited. Her phone buzzed with messages from unknown numbers. She did not open them. She already knew they were from Ben, trying to pull her back with anger or false apology. She turned the screen off and rested her head back against the bench. Not far away, Ben was still inside the restaurant. His voice had grown small as he tried to explain himself to the manager and the people around him, but no one listened with kindness anymore. Security finally arrived and asked him to step outside. Some guests clapped softly as he was guided out. His face burned with shame and frustration, but no one followed him with sympathy. Ben stood on the street alone as the doors of the restaurant closed behind him. He pulled his phone from his pocket and saw that his calls were not being answered. His anger slowly turned into fear. He had never seen Mia leave like that before, without tears, without apologies, without fear. Something inside him knew that this time was different. The bus arrived with a quiet hiss of air, and Mia stepped inside. She paid and found a seat by the window. The city moved past her in slow lights and shadows. She watched people walking on sidewalks, couples talking, friends laughing, and for the first time she did not feel invisible among them. When she reached Lena's home, the door opened before she could even knock. Lena pulled her into a tight embrace without saying a word. Mia pressed her face into her sister's shoulder, and for the first time that night she allowed herself to release the heavy breath she had been holding in. Inside, the home was warm and quiet. A small lamp glowed in the corner, and a soft smell of tea filled the air. Lena guided Mia to the couch and brought her a towel and clean clothes. She did not ask questions right away. She only let Mia clean her face and change in peace. When Mia returned to the couch, Lena sat beside her and gently placed a cup of warm tea in her hands. Then she asked in a calm voice what had happened. Mia looked down at the cup, watching the steam rise, and for a moment she found it hard to speak. Then slowly she began to tell her everything, from the restaurant to the cake to the words that were thrown at her like sharp stones. Lena listened without interrupting, her eyes filled with quiet tears, but her face stayed strong. When Mia finished, the room fell silent for a moment. Then Lena took Mia's hand in both of hers and told her that none of this was her fault. She told her that strength was not shown by staying silent through pain, but by choosing to walk away from it. Those words stayed with Mia like a steady light in her chest. She felt tired in a way that went deeper than the body, but she also felt clear. She asked Lena if she could stay for a while. Lena smiled and told her she could stay as long as she needed. That night Mia slept on the couch wrapped in a soft blanket. The sounds of the city were far away and gentle. When she woke, the sun was just beginning to rise through the window. Her body felt stiff, but her mind felt calm for the first time in many years. Ben did not sleep. He sat alone in the dark of his apartment, replaying the scene in the restaurant over and over again. His pride was hurt more than anything. He tried to call Mia again, but the calls went unanswered, his messages were left unread, and the silence made him angry and uneasy at the same time. The next morning Mia and Lena sat at the kitchen table eating simple breakfast. Lena asked Mia what she wanted to do next. Mia thought for a long moment, then said she wanted to work. She wanted to save her own money and build her own life step by step. Lena nodded with a proud smile and told her she would help in any way she could. They spent that day walking through the neighborhood looking for work. Mia applied at a nearby grocery store and a small cafe by the corner. She spoke with quiet confidence and honest words about her need for a fresh start. By the afternoon, the cafe owner offered her a chance to start the next day. That evening Mia stood outside the cafe holding the small paper with her work time written on it. She felt nervous but also hopeful. She had not felt that feeling in a long time. Across town Ben arrived at Lena's home after hours of waiting and calling. He stood at the door with restless hands. Lena opened the door and told him clearly that Mia did not want to see him. Ben raised his voice and demanded that his wife come home, but Lena remained calm and firm. She told him that his behavior had brought him to this moment and that he needed to leave. Ben realized he was losing control of the story he had always written for their lives, and that thought made him more afraid than angry. He turned away with tight fists and empty threats, but the door was already closed behind him. Inside the home Mia had listened from the other room. Her heart had raced, but she remained where she was. She did not step forward, she did not defend, she did not explain. She stayed still and allowed Lena's strength to stand between her and the past. Later that night Mia sat by the window looking at the quiet street. Her job would begin in the morning. Her life would not change in one day, but for the first time she believed it could change at all. She broke into a small smile, not for anyone else but for herself. What Mia did not know yet was that the night at the restaurant had been seen by more people than she imagined, and the story of her calm strength had already begun to travel farther than she could see. Morning light poured through the small kitchen window as Mia prepared for her first day at the cafe. She had accepted the job with a quiet but firm heart, knowing that each new step she took was a stone placed on a new path she wanted for her future. Lena made breakfast while humming softly, moving around the kitchen with warm energy that Mia found comforting. It felt peaceful to wake up in a place where there was no tension, no raised voice, no cold silence. Mia dressed in a simple shirt and dark pants and tied her hair back. She looked at herself in the mirror, and for the first time she saw not the tired woman she had been, but a woman beginning again. She gave a small steady breath before picking up her bag and stepping out the door. Lena wished her luck with a smile, and Mia carried that smile with her as she walked down the street. The cafe was small and bright with large windows and tables arranged neatly. The aroma of fresh bread and warm coffee filled the air. The owner, a kind man named Sam, greeted her at the door. He had gentle eyes and a warm voice, and he welcomed her with the same kindness he showed the customers. He introduced her to the other workers, a young man named Ravi who prepared drinks and an older woman named Nora who handled most of the morning rush. Mia listened carefully as Nora explained how to use the register, how to arrange the pastries, how to greet each customer with a smile. She practiced folding napkins and placing plates in order. Her hands moved with careful precision. She wanted to do well, not to prove anything to anyone, but because doing a job well gave her a feeling of control she had not felt in years. When the first customers arrived, Mia straightened her posture and greeted them with a soft hello. She took their orders and listened carefully to their requests. Some people were in a hurry, some were friendly, some were quiet and simple, but Mia treated each one with calm and patience. Soon the morning rush began, and the cafe grew noisy with voices and laughter and clinking dishes. Mia stayed focused, moving from table to table, carrying trays, wiping surfaces, restocking cups with a steady rhythm. Sam watched her from the counter with approval. He noticed how she stayed calm even when the crowd grew larger, how she used polite words for every customer, how her presence brought a soft peacefulness to the space. When the rush slowed, he walked over and told her she was doing great. Mia smiled shyly and thanked him, grateful that her effort was seen. But Mia was not the only person whose morning was changing. Across town, Ben woke from a restless night. His head felt heavy and his heart felt pressed by a deep uneasy tension. He had replayed the events of the restaurant over and over again in his mind. Each time the scene looked worse: the icing on Mia's dress, the plate on the floor, the shocked faces of the people, the manager, cold disappointment. He had tried telling himself that he had been pushed too far, that it was Mia's fault, that she should have handled things better, but as the night passed, even he could not pretend anymore. He reached for his phone and checked his messages, hoping she had replied, but the screen stayed empty. The silence made his chest tighten. He tried to convince himself that Mia would come home after calming down, but deep inside he felt a fear he had never felt before, a fear that she had found strength he never expected to see. As Mia spent the day learning to operate the cafe machine and memorizing the menu, Ben drove to different places searching for her. He stopped by her favorite store, he walked through the park where they used to sit on weekends, he returned to the restaurant hoping she might show up, but everywhere he went he found nothing but strangers who looked at him with no recognition, or with quiet judgment. Back at the cafe, Mia finished her shift and stepped outside. The sun was warm and the breeze gentle. She felt tired, but in a good way, the kind of tired that came from honest work. Sam walked her to the door and thanked her again for her effort. He told her that the customers liked her calm way and that she had made a strong start. Mia nodded with gratitude and promised to return early the next morning. As she walked away, she felt a small pride growing inside her, one that was shaped not by anyone else's opinion but by her own steady actions. She returned to Lena home and told her about the day. Lena listened with a smile, her eyes shining with pride at her sister's courage and progress. They cooked dinner together, talking about simple things. The meal tasted warm and comforting, and for the first time in many years Mia laughed without forcing herself to laugh or pretending to be happy. Meanwhile, the story of what happened at the restaurant had begun to travel through the community. One of the guests had recorded a small part of the scene, the moment Ben shouted, and the moment Mia stood up with calm strength in her eyes. The video spread quickly through local circles, and people began talking about it at workplaces and grocery lines, at bus stops. The conversation was not about anger or shame, it was about the quiet strength of a woman who had stood tall in a moment of humiliation. Mia did not know about the video yet, and if she had, she would have felt uncomfortable with such attention. She was not seeking recognition, she only wanted peace and independence. But life often carries stories farther than the storyteller expects. The next morning at the cafe, several customers approached her with warm smiles. One woman told her that she admired her strength. Mia was confused, but thanked her politely. Another customer told her she was brave. Still, she did not understand what they meant, but she continued to do her job with quiet grace. It was only when Ravi showed her the video during a break that she realized what had happened. Her face went pale with surprise. He told her not to worry, and that many people were supporting her in the comments. Mia felt overwhelmed, but also touched. She had never imagined that strangers could feel kindness for her. She sat quietly holding the phone for a long moment, trying to understand this strange new feeling rising in her heart. While her story spread, Ben grew more frustrated. He saw the same video and felt anger burn through him. He told himself that it was unfair that people were judging him, but deep inside he knew the truth. His actions had been wrong, and now everyone could see it. He felt cornered and desperate, and his pride refused to let him accept blame. He drove to Lena home that evening with the video still fresh in his mind. He stood at the door again and knocked harder than before. Lena opened the door, but her expression stayed firm. She told him that Mia did not want to see him, and that he needed to respect her decision. Ben raised his voice, demanding the right to speak to his wife, but Lena stepped outside and closed the door behind her. She told him in a calm voice that his presence would only bring more trouble, and that he needed to leave or she would call for help. Ben looked around at the quiet neighborhood and realized people were watching from windows and porches. He felt their silent judgment settle on him like a weight. He backed away slowly and returned to his car, his hands trembling with frustration. Inside Lena home, Mia had heard the knocking, and her heart raced again, but she stayed where she was. She did not step forward, she did not open the door. Her silence was her strength now, and each moment she refused to return to the past made her more certain of the path she had chosen. Over the next days, Mia's routine grew steady. She woke early, went to work, returned home, helped Lena with chores, and rested. She learned new tasks at the cafe, and grew more confident. She greeted customers by name, and even shared short, friendly conversations with some. She found that she enjoyed talking when she did not have to fear the reaction on the other side. One evening Sam asked if she needed any support, or if everything was all right at home. Mia hesitated, but then shared a small piece of her story without mentioning details. He listened with respect, and told her she was valued at the cafe, and that she had a place there as long as she wanted. That reassurance warmed her heart in a way she did not expect. Across town, Ben was losing control of his life. The video had brought unwanted attention. He had arguments at work, and friends avoided him. His pride kept him from admitting his mistakes, and his loneliness grew as he pushed more people away. He began to understand that he had not only lost his wife, he had also lost the respect of everyone around him. One late evening, Mia walked home from the cafe alone, enjoying the quiet night. She stopped by a small market to buy fruit and bread. As she stepped out, she heard soft footsteps behind her. When she turned, she saw a woman smiling warmly. The woman said she recognized her from the video. She said she wanted to tell her that her calm strength had inspired many people who needed hope. Mia was surprised and humbled. She thanked the woman and continued walking, her steps light and steady. That night she sat by the window again, looking out at the street. The world outside felt larger than before, and for the first time she believed she could be a part of it in her own way. She did not know what the future would bring, but she knew she would not face it with fear anymore. She had already survived the worst moment of her life and walked away with her head held high. What she did not know yet was that her journey was about to take another turn, one that would test her strength in a new way, and open a door to something she never expected.